Hi, my name's Nairi and I'm running an adoption support channel, and today I'm going to talk to you about adoption expectations versus reality. And I had some responses from Instagram from some adopters of a wide range of children that they're adopting and a wide range of times they've been adopting too. And I asked them 5 questions. First of all was how long they've been adopting and the children they were adopting. The second was whether they thought adoption was harder or easier than expected. The third one was what advice would they give to new adopters if they could, one piece of advice. And the third and fourth questions were their current joys and the things that they still struggle with. So those were the 5 questions, and today I'm going to deal with the first 3 because there's more than enough in those first 3 that we can really learn so much from these adopters. So thank you for those who took part. I really appreciate it. First of all, the range of ages that we were dealing with are from age 2 right up to age 14, and the timescales as well for adopting, the least was 3 months and the most were 5.5 years. So that's the first question covered. The second question that we're looking at is obviously the one that really matches up with the title of this video, whether they found it harder or easier than expected. So 4 of them said harder, 1 of them said much harder, and 2 of them said there are aspects of hard and easy, and they wanted to cover both for me, which I was more than happy with. So first of all, let's look at the things that they found that were harder. So first of all, the move into the home, the transition, some people called it the move. Some of them felt that it was muddled with lots of social workers getting involved, and the other aspect of it was that it was just really overwhelming to suddenly find that you were a parent and before that you weren't a parent. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing was the actual parenting, like moving from being someone who doesn't have children to someone who does have children, and how overwhelming that can feel. And I guess that's more relevant to those of you who don't currently have children, that it's not just about adopting, it's about the actual parenting side as well, that you've not had children before and all of a sudden this overwhelming feeling that you are now a parent. That was another thing that was mentioned. Also, the high impact of trauma that came out across all of the questions really. More than one adopter, that trauma features in everyday life and it features in everything that you try to do, whether it be the parenting or gaining an attachment, and sort of understanding trauma being harder than what was anticipated. Also, adoption depression, a couple mentioned that that's very real and something that they've struggled with, and that it features in everyday life and something that they weren't expecting. And then building a real attachment, not one that just appears to be real, but actually a real strong bond and attachment, taking a lot longer and being a lot harder than what they thought it would be. And finally, in this little question as well, things that were kept back from them or were missed by the social worker, so that when the child came, things happened that they just weren't anticipating. So those are the harder things. And then a couple of the easier things, that love came easy was one thing. Approval process was easier than what they anticipated. And somebody else said about the pride of seeing their children develop and make progress and overcome things, which came later in the joys as well. That was something that was mentioned in the joys. Then we move on to question 3. Now there were like parallels, overlaps, different ways of saying things, but I'm just going to put a few of the expressions and sort of, they're not exactly verbatim quotes, but quite close to the quotes that the adopters gave me. And then we're going to summarise what that really means for you. If we're talking about the expectation kind of which is different from reality, it seems, for most adopters, then what does that look like and what can that mean for you? What's the things and strands that you can gain from that and learn from that? One of the things that was said that is sometimes it feels impossible, but it's worth it. One adopter just said, it just feels impossible. But remember that however hard something is, or it can still be right, and the long-term gain is still worth it. The second thing was, don't put too much pressure on yourself and be kind to yourself. So sometimes we can heap a load of responsibilities onto ourselves, putting in expectations and timescales that don't need to be there. And this adopter was saying that you don't need to do that. There's the acceptance of situations that you can't change, and acceptance of sadness and feelings of being overwhelmed, just accepting it and going with it and not being afraid to kind of show those feelings and emotions. And then listen to your gut was something that somebody said, that you know the best for your child, and that came up more than once. Don't be afraid to challenge social workers and keep logs of conversations that you've had with them. And also that your knowledge is better than theory or any book that you can read, like you know your child and there's no one way to do things. Be prepared to say no for the sake of your child. Like if somebody puts something on you that you don't think is actually going to be any good for them, then be prepared to say no. And that attachment takes time. Regression is part of the journey as well. That's good to embrace. And attachment is going to take a long time. So those are kind of like some of the things that they said. So how can we kind of like condense that and look at what it means for adopters coming into the process, or even for those of you who already have children that might be wanting to learn from this video and wanting to take something away. So let's just have a think about that. At the end of the day, adoption is a long-term investment for future life gain, as in the time and the effort, the strength you give to it, the love you give to it, and it's never going to be quick. So when things go wrong, you get down, you have months that are good, months that are bad, it doesn't matter, because overall you're looking at a lifetime with the child. So first of all, the first point I want to make to you is a long-term thing. The second point I want to say from what they've said is self-care is essential, and self-care comes along with self-belief. You have to be able to acknowledge that you need to look after yourself and that you need to believe in yourself as an adopter. Feelings about how bad it can sometimes be and how difficult the journey can be is part of this process, and accepting it is your feelings are something that you have to be able to do, and it's part of self-care and it's part of self-belief, so it links into the other one. And despite all the knowledge in the world and everything that you can read, you're the expert on the child. And if you take nothing else away from this video, that's something I want you to take away from it, that you are the expert on the child and nobody else can tell you the right way to parent. And then finally, the effects of trauma are far-reaching. They mean attachment takes a long time, they mean that aggression might happen, and they mean that parenting is going to be hard. So I'm going to just summarize these again for you. These are 5 points that I want you to take away from this video and take away from these amazing adopters that have helped me to bring this together and have taken part in this little survey, this little project I've done. And I'm going to make another video on their joys and their struggles that they've given me, because it's quite in depth and I didn't think it was appropriate to add it onto this video. I'm going to make another video about their specific joys that they have and their specific struggles on a daily basis, so we can learn from that. So let's go through again. It's a long-term thing. Self-care and self-belief is essential. Feelings have to be acknowledged even when they're bad. Knowledge of your child is all down to you. You can read what you like, but you're the expert on the child, and effects of trauma are far-reaching. I hope that's helped you. I found it really interesting reading their comments. I hope that you found that interesting too. If you've enjoyed that, please subscribe to my channel. Check out my playlists where you'll find more on attachment, therapeutic parenting, parenting in general of adopted children, and hopefully I'll see you on my next video, which was going to be thank you.